Day 1 of waking up at 5 a.m., I felt like I'd unlocked a cheat code. Month 4, I was setting 3 alarms and lying to people about still doing it. Month 9, something happened at 5 a.m. that no morning routine video will ever show you, because it ruins the whole story they're selling. I remember the exact moment. January 3rd, 5:00 a.m. The alarm goes off, and for the first time in my life, I don't hit snooze, I just get up. The apartment is dark, not cozy dark. Dark like a room that doesn't expect anyone to be conscious in it. The street outside is dead. I walk to the kitchen, and the only sound in the world is water heating in the kettle. My bare feet on the cold tile, that kind of cold that shoots straight up your shins, are the only proof I'm actually awake. I sit at the desk, open the notebook, and there's this feeling I still can't properly name, like the entire city is unconscious, and I've broken into the hours they weren't using. Stolen time. I wrote for 90 minutes that morning. By the time the sun came up, I'd done more than I usually do in an entire day. I looked at the clock. 6:47 a.m. And the thought that landed felt like truth. This is it. This is the thing that changes everything. The first 2 weeks were magic. I'm not going to pretend they weren't. I was more productive, calmer. I'd show up to work at 9 having already written 2,000 words, worked out, and read a chapter of a book. My coworkers said, "You seem different." I was different. I was the guy who wakes up at 5 a.m., and I loved being that guy. But here's what nobody told me. That feeling, that electric, I'm ahead of the world feeling. It has an expiration date, and what's waiting on the other side isn't discipline. It's a silence so uncomfortable that most people set their alarm back to 7 and never talk about what happened. This video isn't my 5 a.m. routine. It's the year-long truth that morning routine videos are designed to hide. 3 phases. The one everyone films, the one nobody survives, and the one that changes what the alarm actually means. In the first 2 months, everything was content. I was photographing sunrises from my kitchen window like I'd discovered the sun, posting my morning setup to stories, the coffee, the notebook, the lamp casting that golden glow that turns any desk into a productivity ad. I bought a specific journal because it matched the aesthetic, reorganized my desk 3 times, tracked my wake-up times on a color-coded spreadsheet. I was reading articles about circadian rhythms to validate what I was already doing, cherry-picking science that agreed with me and scrolling past anything that didn't. Looking back, I spent more time performing the 5 a.m. life than using the extra hours, but the feeling was too good to question. What I didn't understand then is that the magic of those first weeks has a name: novelty-driven dopamine. When you do something new that your brain codes as potentially rewarding, dopamine floods the system. Not because the thing is objectively good, because it's novel. New workout, new diet, new city, new wake-up time. Dopamine every time. That feeling of everything is different now isn't evidence that you've changed. It's a chemical reward for trying something unfamiliar. And that reward, reliably, predictably, fades. For most people between week 6 and week 10. Which means every 5 a.m. success story you've ever seen was filmed inside the dopamine window. Nobody films what comes after. And here's where it turns dangerous. During those weeks, you don't just wake up early. You become the person who wakes up early. It enters your identity. You tell people at dinner. You quietly compare yourself to people who sleep until 8. Your self-worth starts to include a timestamp. The problem with building identity on a feeling: when the feeling leaves, the identity cracks. You're not losing a habit. You're losing a version of yourself that you already introduced to everyone you know. The golden lie isn't that waking up early is bad. It's that the first month feeling is not what sustaining the habit feels like. And nobody prepares you for what happens when the golden feeling leaves and you're still sitting in the dark, alone, with nothing but the question: Why am I actually doing this? March 11th. The alarm goes off at 5, sraisho. I stare at the ceiling. No electricity. No stolen hours feeling. Just dark. Cold. The heater running all night left that dry metallic taste in the back of my throat. And a thought arrives, clean as a text message. I don't want to do this. Not, I'm tired. I was used to tired. This was different. The absence of the feeling that had been carrying me, like running on a flat tire. The car still moves, but every rotation sounds wrong. I got up anyway, sat at my desk at 5:14, opened the notebook, stared at the blank page until 5:47 without writing a word. Then closed it, went back to bed, and told myself I'd start fresh tomorrow. Here's what the decline looks like from inside. Week 1 of the void. You negotiate. 5:30 instead of 5, you are 0. Same thing, basically. It's not. Week 2. You set a second alarm, then a third. Week 3. You sleep through all 3. And the guilt, it's physical before it's mental. A heaviness in your chest before your feet touch the floor. Week 4. You stop telling people. Someone asks how the early mornings are going and you say, "Great," while staring at your coffee. That small, quiet lie. The one that confirms you've already mentally quit, but haven't given yourself permission to say it. The void happens because the dopamine was doing the job that purpose was supposed to do. In months 1 and 2, you didn't need a reason. The feeling was the reason. But novelty is a lighter, not a furnace. It ignites fast and burns out in your hand. And when it burns out, you're left with the only question that matters. What am I waking up for? Not to be productive. That's a bumper sticker. Not to get ahead. Ahead of what? A real, specific, personal reason heavy enough to pull you out of bed when the feeling is gone. March birds are chirping outside like they're mocking the darkness you used to romanticize, and every cell in your body is voting to stay horizontal. Most people who quit waking up early don't quit at 5 a.m. They quit at 5:17, sitting in the dark, realizing they have nothing to say, nothing to write, nothing urgent enough to justify being conscious. And then they feel like failures. They see month 12 transformation videos and think, "What's wrong with me?" Nothing. You didn't fail at waking up early. You discovered that waking up early without a reason is voluntary insomnia with good branding. The habit wasn't broken. The foundation was never poured. So why didn't I quit? I wish the answer were purpose. Some noble reason worth freezing for. But I kept waking up at 5 a.m. because I was terrified of what it would mean if I stopped. I'd told everyone. My girlfriend had bought earplugs and adjusted to the alarm. My friends knew. My Instagram knew. I was the 5 a.m. guy. And becoming the guy who tried and quit felt like a small public death. So I kept setting the alarm, not because the mornings were good, but because admitting they weren't felt worse. By month 4, I had 120 days of streaks, screenshots, conversations I'd steered toward the topic. Quitting wasn't stopping a clock. It was demolishing who I'd told the world I was. Psychologists call this escalation of commitment. Continuing because of what you've invested, not what you're getting back. Same engine that keeps people in dead jobs, finished relationships, and bleeding businesses. I wasn't waking up for the mornings. I was waking up for the narrative. But underneath the identity fear, there was something else I didn't recognize until months later. The alarm wasn't just a habit. It was an escape hatch. Think about what 5 a.m. gives you. 2 hours where nobody needs you. No texts, no emails, no relationship conversations you've been dodging. The early morning felt like freedom. But it was freedom from my actual life. The job that tightened my stomach every Sunday night. The conversation with my girlfriend I kept rescheduling in my head. The creative project I'd talked about for 2 years but never started because I don't have enough time. even though I had 3 extra hours daily and was spending them journaling about productivity instead of producing anything. The alarm was a decoy. The pre-dawn silence wasn't peaceful. It was anesthetic. The morning routine industry runs on one premise: win the morning, win the day. But what if winning the morning is your way of avoiding the day? What if the 5 a.m. alarm is the most productive-looking procrastination you've ever built? Month 6. Waking up out of fear, performing productivity in the dark, avoiding my life with the world's most Instagrammable coping mechanism. That should have been the end. But something happened in month 7 I didn't expect. The silence stopped being an escape and started being a mirror. Month 7. A Tuesday. October. The darkness is back. Same darkness as January, but it feels different. In January, the dark was cinematic. In October, it just felt like what it was: absence of light. Nothing symbolic. I sit at the desk, open the notebook, and for the first time in 7 months, I just don't. No gratitude list. No intentions. No plan. I sit in the dark with nothing. The silence is so complete I can hear the fridge humming 2 rooms away, the building settling, small cracks, tiny shifts, like the structure turning over in its sleep. And something cracks in me too. Not dramatically. A hairline fracture in a wall I didn't know I'd built. And through it, a thought I'd been burying. I don't actually like my life. I like my morning, but not what comes after. Once I stopped performing, things surfaced. My job was safe but flattening me. And side project mornings had been a substitute for leaving. I journaled about gratitude daily, but hadn't told my girlfriend something real in weeks. I read 30 pages a day, but hadn't had a conversation about any of it with a single person. The hours had been full of activity but empty of honesty. When the activity stopped, the honesty was deafening. One Saturday in month 8. I wake at 5, notebook open. Write the date, November 14th. Then nothing. 22 minutes staring at the date I'd written, watching the ink dry. And then, this is the part I've never said out loud, I started crying. Not cathartic movie crying, just leaking. Sitting in the dark at 5:22 a.m., tears running, and I didn't know what I was crying about. Something in me was exhausted in a way sleep couldn't fix. I closed the notebook, went back to bed. My girlfriend asked why I was up. Just getting water. That was the closest I came to quitting. Not because the mornings were hard, because I'd met a version of myself I didn't recognize, crying at a desk for no reason he could name. But this time, I stayed for a different reason. Not fear. The silence had started telling me things I needed to hear. Things I couldn't hear at any other hour because every other hour was noise, obligations, and the performance of having my life together. You know how deep-sea divers talk about nitrogen narcosis? At certain depths, pressure makes the brain act drunk, euphoric, invincible, certain everything's fine. And that feeling is the most dangerous thing in the ocean, because it stops you from recognizing you're running out of air. Regular life works the same way. The noise, the notifications, the routines, they create a narcosis of busyness. You feel productive. You feel alive. But underneath, something might be running out. Time, connection, honesty, alignment between who you are and who you've been performing as. Sitting in silence at 5 a.m. is like ascending to shallow water. The narcosis wears off. And you see, clearly, exactly how much air you have left. The transformation wasn't what I expected. I didn't build a business or develop abs or finish a novel. What happened was simpler and harder. I became someone who couldn't lie to himself anymore. At 5 a.m., with no distractions and no audience, there's nowhere to hide. In month 8, I had the conversation I'd been avoiding for 6 months. It was terrible and necessary. In month 9, I updated my resume for the first time in 3 years. Not at 5 a.m., but because 5 a.m. had made pretending impossible. In month 11, I stopped journaling about gratitude and started journaling about fear. The notebook became something I dreaded opening. That dread was the signal it was finally working. The value of waking up early has nothing to do with productivity or extra hours. It's the 1 hour where you cannot perform for anyone. You can fill the silence with noise, routines, apps, podcasts, or you can sit in it and hear what it's been trying to tell you. The people who quit at month 3 didn't fail. They ran into the silence and it was too loud. The people who make it to month 12 don't make it because they're more disciplined. They make it because they learn to tolerate the truth. I'm not going to tell you to wake up at 5 a.m. And I'm not going to tell you not to. The hour doesn't matter. 5, 6, 7. The number on the clock is irrelevant. What matters is the question behind the alarm. And it's not, am I disciplined enough? That's the question the industry wants you to ask because it keeps you buying apps. The real question is simpler and scarier. If I had one silent hour every day with nothing to do, nobody watching, and nowhere to perform, would I be okay with what comes up? If yes, you're ready. Not for the productivity, for the mirror. If no, that's not a reason to avoid it. That's the reason to do it. The discomfort you're feeling right now is the same discomfort waiting at 5:17 when the notebook is open and the pen isn't moving. And that discomfort is the most useful thing in the world. Not because it feels good, because it's honest. This week, once, set an alarm 60 minutes earlier. Get up. Don't check your phone. Don't open an app. Don't start a routine. Sit somewhere quiet with nothing. No podcast, no book. Just you and the silence. 15 minutes. Pay attention to what surfaces. Not what you decide to think about, but what arrives uninvited. The thought that floats up on its own. Write it down. One sentence. That sentence is worth more than 365 optimized mornings, because that sentence is the truth. You can build a life on truth. You can't build one on an alarm. And if you're thinking, I just want more productivity, skip the existential stuff. I started there too. But productivity without direction is elegant procrastination. More hours don't help if they're aimed at the wrong things. And you can't know what the right things are until you've sat still long enough for the noise to clear. I still wake up at 5 a.m. Not every day, not for the streak, not for the January 3rd electricity. That's long gone. I wake up because the silence taught me things I couldn't hear at any other hour. Some painful. Some that changed everything. And every morning, when the alarm goes off and the apartment is dark, I sit down not to be productive, but to check. Am I still being honest? That's the whole routine. One question in the dark, and the willingness to hear the answer. The alarm doesn't change your life. The silence does. If you stop filling it with noise long enough to hear what it's been trying to tell you, drop one word in the comments, just one. The thing that surfaces when you're truly alone with your thoughts. No performance, no filter. Just the word. If you can't think of one, that itself is the answer. And this week is the week. Subscribe if you want content that treats you as someone who can handle the truth, not someone who needs another system.